Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to Anime here on Reaction and Review. Tonight, guys, we are closing out the month by finishing a trilogy that kicked off the month. The third and final entry in the series came out in 2014, and that movie is Berserk: The Golden Age, Arc 3, The Advent. And I would love to comment about how, once more, this doesn't need two goddamn titles, but frankly, I've bitched about that in the first two entries in this trilogy. I really don't want to do it in all three. Now, one other thing I've complained about across the first two, and I'm almost bound to complain about here if it is a problem which continues, is this series' insistence on trying to blend traditional animation with really cheap, really rushed, really ugly, cel-shaded CG. And in fact, actually, between the first and second films, that CG got worse. I'm hoping that it has gotten better here. And if it has, then shit, then this right here is going to be a huge step up. I'm still trying to get used to the fact that we have this cel-shaded garbage in here. But hey, I'm still really digging the writing. The writing's really good. At least it was for the first two. Don't know if it's going to be here. I have seen the original Berserk animated series, so I do know what happens here. I do know how this story ends, but I'm curious exactly what they do with it now that they aren't leashed to television censorship standards, and exactly how batshit nasty is this thing going to get. I cannot wait to see that, and the only way I'm gonna get to see it is if I shut up and I push play, and I'm gonna do that right now. So, without further ado, it's time to kick back, relax, and check out Berserk: The Golden Age, Arc 3, The Advent. You know, guys, I was just thinking about something. Now, and this, guys, has nothing to do with, what I'm seeing right now, but it's just something that is just kind of bugging me a little bit. So, this series has taken a whole lot of, time, skips where we suddenly jump ahead, 3 years. We jump ahead a year. At the very start of this, we jump a year after the second film. But what's sort of bugging me is with all these time skips, nobody has aged a day. Alright, there is a fucking kid amongst the band of the Hawk. In the first film, he looked to be about 13. We're about 6 years past that. He still looks 13. I totally understand that you don't want to age your characters much, but if somebody's going to be a fucking kid in the first one and you're going to jump this far ahead, at least let him age a bit to sort of show that time has passed. Put maybe a couple of wrinkles on a character's face. Do something to show us that time has passed. I understand, guys, it's trivial and stupid. It's just kind of bugging me a little bit. Okay, I honestly, guys, was not friggin' expecting, any of this. This is a little bit nastier than even I thought this movie would pull off, but you know what? The victim? I'm so happy to see him fucking die. And he was only in the second film for, a couple of minutes. But, honestly, guys, to see him brutalized that much, man, that puts a smile on my fucking face, man. I think I have found a problem with this one, guys. See, the first two had fantastic pacing, and we never hung around a scene for too, long. The story just kept on chugging. This one, it's really, really lagging. I mean, the film is just dragging on. The pacing in this one, guys, is horrible, especially compared to the first two. And it's really making this thing a little bit more difficult to, watch, guys. I really wish I could say more was going on, but really, guys, for the past, 45 minutes or so that this movie's been going, we've had maybe about 25 minutes of plot. The rest of it's just been filler and nothing, and it's kind of starting to suck. Guys, I never really thought I would find a reason to praise the god-awful CG in these movies, but I finally have found a, reason. Because rendering this entire demon world in cel-shaded CG really does add a whole new level of creepiness to the whole thing, and it makes it look really good. Why the hell couldn't they have put this kind of effort into every other instance of CG? All of the troops who are inside of the hellscape who look like shit because they're rendered in shitbag CG, and they spent too much time rendering the background and the floor. But still, at least the background and the floor look really nice. I mean, at least there's that. It's actually kind of weird. Weird, guys. Now, this whole sequence is supposed to be a soul-fucking-shattering, shocking, just violent display of horror as we watch the Band of the Hawk get slaughtered. Except they've drug it out for so long that they actually have made this vile bloodbath boring. I never thought I'd say that, guys, about this sequence. I had the most hope for this sequence. And the pacing in this third movie is so bad that they've actually rendered this a little bit dull. Well, guys, that was Berserk the Golden Age Arc 3, The Advent. Let's shut that off. Okay. Well, you know, as a way to close out this trilogy, it really could have been a hell of a lot better. Let me try to explain. First of all, why don't we hit, like, the normal fucking complaints? The stuff that I've been griping about ever since the first movie. And that is the CG, okay? The CG in this thing, for the most part, is shit. And it stands out even more when they actually use it well. Alright, and this, guys, when I say that, alright? When the Band of the Hawk, or when, well, what's left of the Band of the Hawk, are sent into this, like, hellscape world, and Griffith is being reborn, and all this other fun shit. Our demons, our background, our floor of moaning heads, all looks great, and it's all rendered in CG. And then when we look at the Band of the Hawk, it is the worst CG in the entire trilogy, as almost everybody's face is completely washed out. They have no detail at all. Which is weird, because there's almost no light in there to wash the fucking detail out. I mean, you know, it probably would have made sense if this fucking hellscape was brightly lit, but it wasn't. And yet when you look at the characters' faces, there's almost no detail, because everything's completely washed out, because they fucked up the cell shading effect. And again, we wouldn't have had any of these problems if they didn't fucking resort to cell shading every single time you had a person on horseback or more than two people in fucking armor moving around in the same shot. And they could have taken the time. They could have made the whole thing hand animated, would have looked infinitely better, and they could have saved the CG for the backgrounds, the castles, the banners, everything else, and it would have looked great. But because they decided to cheap out on that when it came to characters and armor and everything else, it winds up standing out and looking terrible. Probably the worst instance, though, of CG is way late in the film, as Guts is trying to save, when Guts is trying to save Casca. I'm not going to go into detail. I really don't want to spoil much for those who haven't seen this. But Guts is covered from head to toe in blood. And they decided to render him in CG, and his face is doing all these weird contortions and movements. And these guys are movements that there is no way a human face could or should ever make. They are the most unnatural movements you will ever see. And it makes the whole thing, it makes him looking, angered and just pissed off and completely determined. It just turns it into an almost joking affair, because his face is twitching in so many weird fucking ways. It really, guys, is the first time I think I've ever seen a character mugging the fucking camera in a scene that's supposed to be serious. And that is just sad. Now, I'm going to try to avoid talking about the CG for the rest of this, because I got a lot more I have to talk about. Let's talk about the writing. I mentioned a few times as I was watching this that this film, at times, the pacing grinds to an absolute halt, and it refuses to start up again for upends of 15 to 20 minutes. Both times, guys, the moment that I complained about the film just, stopping all forward progress is when it then decides to rocket forward for anywhere from 10 to 20 minutes, and then it starts to drag its feet again. And in fact, guys, the very ending of this thing drags on far longer than it seriously had to. Guys, we have here a movie that runs 1 hour and 47 minutes. you could probably have told it in maybe an hour and 15 and you'd have been fine. That guy's how much filler and padding and bullshit is worked into this film. And I do not want to hear any fucking arguments about how 1 hour and 15 is not, long enough, because if I'm not mistaken, that was how long the first movie in this trilogy was. So, we have already established that you can make it kind of short and make it work. And they didn't do that here, and I'm not entirely sure why. So we have a film which is brutally trying to pad itself out so that way it's longer than either of the previous films. And because of that, the pacing in this thing is just almost fucking apocalyptically bad at times. Like, guys, you could literally, I'm not even joking when I say that you could cut almost like a half an hour of shit out of here, and you would not miss a thing. And the movie would probably flow infinitely better. But still though, even with the pacing issues, we still have here a fantastic story buried under there. And if you can look past the pacing problems, if you can look past the terrible CG, if you can look past every flaw this movie's got, buried deep in there is a beautiful story. And it is a fantastic action horror story. Unfortunately, you have to dig through a mountain of pig shit to get to it, but still, the very fact that we have such an awesome story here almost makes it worth it. Now, beyond the pacing issues, our writing here is really solid. And as I stated before, I have seen the previous adaptation of this arc when it was turned into a 24-episode show. And that 24-episode show covers the very same arc that all three of these movies covers. And I kind of sort of figured that our fucking ending here was going to be far, far more graphic and nasty because they don't have to worry about, like censorship and ratings boards and all this other fun shit. And sure enough, yes, this thing is just absolutely, almost fucking nauseatingly brutal at times. Unfortunately, though, right here, guys, is sort of where the pacing sort of gets... I mean, now this here, guys, is just sort of where the pacing issues sort of come in. Because, yes, guys, it's brutal, and it's nasty, and it's sick, and there are certain shots which are going to make you gag a little bit. Problem is, when you see all of that for almost 20 minutes, it stops being shocking. And when it stops being shocking, it then starts to get boring. And just when it starts to get boring, it finally picks up again. So I honestly, guys, can at least say this when it comes to pacing is once you honestly are sick and tired of the movie just, dragging its feet, that honestly is the very moment when it finally wants to rocket back into the story. But I do have to stress, you shouldn't have to get fed up with terrible pacing in order for the story to go and continue again. And again, all of this was done to pad out this film to make it an hour and 40 minutes instead of trying to, give us more fucking depth with the characters, or maybe try to set up even more about the next arc that we will probably never see committed to film. And on that note, before I go any further, I want to inform every single studio and company involved in making these films. All right, and I'm looking on the back here, so that would be, let's see here, Viz, Warner Brothers, Studio fucking 4C. I will happily forgive every flaw across all three of these films. I will happily forgive the terrible CG, the hideous pacing in this thing. I will happily forgive all of that if you'll do a trilogy of films telling us the next goddamned arc. Because this is the second time I have seen this story arc adapted to film. And it is still really good. Damn it, I want to see more. So please, for the love of God, give us more of this story. Give us something more, and hopefully maybe you'll have fixed your little CG fetish, or maybe you'll at least make it decent, or at least more decent than it was in these things. That honestly is all I'm asking for, is I want more of this series. Now, moving back into actually covering this film, the acting, well, it's the same actors giving the same quality performances we saw in the first two films. So really, guys, I can't say much outside of it is really good, and our cast is really talented. Excuse me, and they all turn in fantastic showings. So yes, guys, the acting here is good. Our music here is good. And our art style, when it's not rendered in shitbag CG, looks really fucking good. Guys, honest, I'm going to tell you guys right now, my biggest fault with this one is its pacing. And that almost killed it for me, all right? The pacing and the still questionable CG almost killed this film for me, just like how it almost killed the second one. However, though, I am still able to look past all of that and still see the awesome quality story buried underneath all of it. And because of that, I'm going to tentatively recommend this one, but I do have to stress, go and watch the first two movies, and if you're still interested, then by all means come and check out this one. There's no way in hell you should ever try to watch this thing first without watching the previous two, because the previous two are where you get all of your character depth. So you honestly are not going to give a shit about a single character in this film unless you've seen the previous two films and have gotten all of the character depth needed. So yeah, guys, I can totally recommend this thing as long as you watch the first two films first. So yeah, this thing here is certainly going to go into my Blu-ray collection. I cannot wait to see if they are going to continue the series and give us another arc. I kind of doubt it, but still, I'm going to hope. And if they do make more, then I am going to forgive every single fault that these things have, because god damn it, that means then I get more story that I did not get when the show was fucked over after one season. And also, then that means I don't have to go out and purchase, the books, and I can just continue, and I can continue to be a lazy fucking dick and just watch the movies. Anyway, yes, I can recommend this one more time, as long as you watch the previous two. Speaking of the previous two, all three movies in this trilogy were sent in by the same person off the Amazon wish list, and that person was Ike. And I'd love to tell you guys Ike's YouTube channel, his Facebook page, his, anything, but Ike hasn't given me any sort of shout out info, and that really is a pity, because I would really like to help him out. But Ike, dude, I do totally thank you. I'm very happy now to have seen all three of these, and even with every fault and flaw all three films have, I still found myself loving them, and they're all going to have a very happy spot on my Blu-ray shelf. And Ike, I would not have known any of that if you hadn't have sent them in. I thank you, and you, sir, are fucking awesome. Now, guys, it really has been a couple of weeks since I watched the first film in this trilogy. I think I'm going to go and re-watch that. Why? Just because I kind of feel like it. Anyway, guys, with that, we come to the close of another reaction and review. Until next time, ladies and gentlemen, take care, and I will see you all in the near future. Peace.